Good evening. It's 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we have two meetings tonight. The Cunningham Town Board will be followed by the regular meeting of the Urbana City Council. I'd like to call the meeting of the Cunningham Town Board to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr.
Here.
Ammons, Mr. Brown,
Here.
Mr. Jacobson, Mr. Madigan,
Here.
Ms. Marlin,
Here.
Mr. Roberts,
Here.
Mr. Smythe, Mayor Pressing.
Here. The first item is public participation. If anybody would like to address the Cunningham Town Board, please complete one of these little slips and we will call your name. The first person is Kim Hooper.
Hi, I'm Kim Hooper. This is Katie Moore. She's my coworker at Cunningham Township. And we would just like to address a travel ordinance that you guys are going to be asked to review later. This ordinance will affect myself, it will affect Katie, it will affect our Chief Deputy, Jamie Willard, who cannot be here tonight. Travel is not an issue in our office, nor has it been during my 7 years as an employee. We do understand that there are spending perimeters, and we have stayed within them. I have copies of our budget if you need to see those. We do, however, strongly urge your consideration regarding rooming requirements stated in this ordinance in Section 3, Number 4, Letter B. We have recently returned, the three of us, from our annual continuing education, and you'll see that whenever you review our receipts for our reimbursement. So these concerns and these restrictions are at the forefront of our minds. We've tried rooming together before and it just doesn't work. While we work efficiently together and we get along well, we, like everyone, have different comfort levels. Our concerns are simple. There's such things as time and space to study for the tests that follow the classes that we take. Temperature controls, sleeping habits, those are just a few. For this reason, we ask that this ordinance be tabled for later review and rewrite, or simply disregarded for the assessor's office, because again, our office does not have any issue with travel or overspending. This ordinance could be implemented in its entirety in the supervisor's office if she so wishes, and I just ask you guys to take a look at it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I wanted to make sure I had both your names again.
Mm-hmm.
Kim and
Katie.
Katie? Okay.
And Eric?
This appeared in my inbox, but it wasn't clear to me who drafted it.
My understanding is that Michelle Mayo drafted it.
Is that right? Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Dan Stebbins.
Can I speak when you guys get to it?
Sure, that'd be fine. Is there anyone else who would like to address the Cunningham Town Board? Okay, you want to come forward, please?
It's Carletta Donaldson. As I looked at the agenda tonight, I just want for the public and those that are watching live tonight, just for an explanation on under new business. Make sure I'm looking at the right thing. Yes, put my glasses on. 7B.
You're talking
I'm sorry,
about
not
the city
7B.
council meeting?
This is the township board,
Okay.
right?
'cause it
Yes,
was-
I'm sorry. I went to the wrong thing. 6.
Okay,
Under
all right.
on the
You
agenda.
You checked both of them? All right, okay, I see now. Go ahead, sorry.
Unfinished business 6A, just for the viewing public, an explanation of the township board versus the city council board and the pay or stipend or whatever it's called. The difference between that it's separated. There's two different, I guess, stipends, one for the township board and one for the city council. So if someone can just explain that, and I'll take my seat.
The township board is a payment per meeting, and the city council is an annual
And it's not all
Sound.
together, it's separate. So per meeting
Right.
on the township board.
Right, and then the annual salary for the
And that
council
includes the
member.
once per month, the first Monday of the month, and then also any special meetings,
It includes everything.
every separate meeting.
Everything that a council member would do. Some of them do a lot of outside work, research on the issues that come to the city council.
And then for the council, that's a township for each
No,
meeting.
I just said about the council.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's for everything. And then for the
Everything.
township, it's per meeting, whether it's
Right.
special meeting, the regular meeting,
Right,
each meeting.
exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else want to address the town board? Okay, we'll move on. The first item is minutes of the previous meeting, October 3rd, 2016.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Motion by Roberts, seconded by Ammons. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Next, the committee to verify bills. Michelle Mayall.
The November claims that include October interim, town fund is $69,146.07. GA fund is $15,513.51.
Any questions for Michelle? Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the town fund and the general assistance fund as spoken.
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion by Roberts, seconded by Marlin. Any questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Reports of officers.
Just one that the coat drive has been started again at the township, so any coats, hats, gloves, scarves that anyone wants to donate can be dropped off.
Okay. Then we have unfinished business, resolution number T 2016-10-006R, a resolution setting compensation of Cunningham Township officials for the 4-year term beginning May 15, 2017, for the supervisor, the clerk, and the town board, and beginning January 1st, 2018, for the Cunningham Township assessor. Do you want to talk about that, Michelle, or?
I emailed everything to everybody with comparisons, and then Dennis emailed something, and so did Charlie, as alternative increases, so.
Charlie?
Yeah, I'll speak first. I want to thank Bill for sending around some documents from municipal officials and looking at those numbers on a per capita basis. The numbers that Dennis or I that are proposing, which are in the $60,000 range for the supervisor and $65,000 range for the assessor, are comparable if you consider a per capita basis comparing to other townships. So if you adjust for size, in other words, we're in the ballpark with those kinds of numbers. Townships with higher EAV, higher populations, have higher salaries or higher per meeting costs and so on. Champaign, to its credit, charges nothing, or their board members get no salary, get no per meeting numbers as well. So I would, personally, I'm ready to go with a 1% increase or a $1,000 per year increase for both the supervisor and the assessor. I would freeze I would just set the clerk's salary to $5,700 for the entire 4-year term, and I would set our per meeting at $45 flat, though I would also equally support zeroing that out entirely. So that's where I stand right now.
So is that a motion, Charlie?
I wanted to get some discussion and feedback first.
Well, we can get a motion in a second and then have the discussion. Dennis?
Yeah, well, I thought we could probably talk about the different plans that were presented, then make a motion after that.
However,
Yeah.
you want to do it?
So I appreciate the efforts that various trustees here on the board have also, have taken to do the budget for the township officers as well. I got the feeling that as proposed, the jump to equalize the salaries to Champaign or other community, other townships in the state was a little drastic for us. We're a smaller unit of government, and we have to kind of move forward cautiously. However, I also agree that that it's appropriate to reward people for work, and it would be unlikely that anybody would want to not provide increments of salary increases to an employee for the basic reason that cost of living is going up, and one sees many other jobs and positions in the city government and other positions in the state and locally gradually increasing. Charlie was a little more reserved in his 1% raise for the supervisor's position. I had suggested an initial raise from $58,000 plus to $61,000, which is a $2,500 raise for the 2017. And similar to the proposal I made for the mayor's salary at a previous meeting of the city council, I suggested that the township supervisor's salary raise only $1,000 for the next 3 years. So it would end up at the end of 2020, the salary would be $64,054. So I thought that was a moderate appreciation of a salary. I did something somewhat similar to the township assessor's salary, giving the first raise only $1,000 increments for 4 years of the term that is specified, and the township clerk salary going up $100 the first time and $50 for the next 3 years incrementally. And I propose that the trustees, which are us, who receive now $44.95 every time we attend a meeting, which is about 12 or 13 times a year, or depending on if you miss a meeting, you don't get anything at all, to $45, and I'm willing to say that's a flat rate for the next 4 years. In other words, I'm making it a raise of 94 cents. Some people think that it would be better not to pay the trustees anything because we also receive money as city council members. But I would suggest that any time that you spend working on facts and figures and making decisions for the township, which handles a considerable number of funds for social services, and when we do the social service funding designations, it can take a person hours going through the different applications to make the appropriations individually from ward to ward to ward. And I think that anybody who has a job, who does any kind of work for somebody else, whether you be a computer scientist, a painter, a cook, or a babysitter, would expect to have some minimal remuneration. So I'm not interested for myself, I don't think it would be appropriate to just say that we would do this activity for nothing. But I don't think that $45 a person per meeting is going to necessarily hurt the city's or the township's budget, since they've been paid this for years in the past. So that's my point of view, and those are my suggestions.
Diane.
Well, I had sent around a third proposal, which would have eliminated the town board salaries. I agree with Charlie. Freeze the town clerk's salary, and that eliminating our own salaries for these meetings would save about $3,700 a year. And then I would use some of those savings for relatively modest increases in the supervisor salary and $1,500 a year for 4 years, and a minimal increase in the assessor salary increase of $500 a year. But I am fine with just not being paid for these township meetings. We meet on the same night as city council. Our meetings typically last 10 to 15 minutes. There really are no outside duties. We don't have any other responsibilities associated with the township, and I'd feel better using these savings to cover any salary increases. So there's a no net increase in what we're spending on salaries here.
Eric?
I did a little bit of research on cost of living increases, and over the last 4 years, those have averaged approximately 1% a year. But this has been a very low inflation period. Over the last 10 years, they've averaged about 1.5% a year, and I would guess that that would be a more likely projection than the very, very low rate we have. I do believe that our officials who actually rely on their salaries for their livelihood deserve to keep up with inflation. They deserve not to have their salaries eroded every year. So my proposal would be a 1.5% increase for each of the per year for each of the township officials. As far as I'm pretty relaxed about whether the town board gets paid or not. It's a relatively small amount of money. On the other hand, symbolically, it's a pretty big deal, and I'm not going to fight about it one way or the other.
Okay, anyone else? Charlie?
I'll make a motion then that the supervisor and assessor's salaries each go up $900 a year over the next 4 years, because that's about 1.5%, rather than the $1,000 that I proposed. That the clerk's salary be frozen at $5,700, and that the trustee's salaries be frozen at $45 per meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, so that was, did you say a 1.5% increase for the two elected officials?
Doing a flat $900 each year.
Oh, flat 900,
Right,
okay.
yeah.
All right. All right, Eric? I mean, Aaron.
All right. So I do not think, I think that the gap between the township supervisor and the assessor needs to be closed a bit. I recognize that the assessor has a specific skill set that requires or allows for a difference in pay. But I do believe that the gap that exists there, since we're always throwing around the example of what Champaign does, I think Champaign pays $2,000 more for the assessor than it does for the supervisor. I am not supportive of a $5,000 or $5,700, whatever the increase was, the proposed one.
No, it was just freeze it at.
That you were saying for
The original.
what I'm saying is that there looks like there was a $2,500 one-time proposal for the supervisor. I just think there needs to be something, whether it's $500. I think there was a difference between what the mayor was $1,500 and the clerk was $1,000 or something we did in the first year. I think there needs to be some sort of difference that allows to an opportunity to close the gap between the assessor and the township supervisor.
Okay.
Is what I'm speaking to.
We had a motion by Charlie. Was there a second to that motion?
Second,
No, it was seconded by Eric. Okay. All right, and then we're in discussion now. Anyone else? Mike?
Well, I would agree with Aaron. I think there is justification to close the gap between the assessor and the supervisor based on the mere fact that our supervisor has done a phenomenal job over the last few years, and actually making the claims to the township match the law. So I guess I have a question for Michelle. Do you know, can you tell me a number, since you've been the supervisor, about the savings that you have accrued to the township by your review of the files and by making sure that everyone is in compliance with the law?
If it would have stayed like it was, the township probably would have been paying in excess of $800,000 over the last 4 years.
And that's a cumulative number, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so an average of $200,000 a year saved by your review of the files.
Correct.
Okay. Well, so in the real world of business, people get paid based on merit. And to me, her performance merits an increase. So as a taxpayer, I wouldn't often say, gee, we ought to give somebody $5,000 on a $60-some-thousand salary. But there's been a savings to the township of, in the next year, it'll be $1 million. So I think that is a small price to pay for someone doing an extraordinary job of getting the township in shape fiscally. So I would agree with Aaron. I think there ought to be some parity with the assessor because I frankly don't think that the job responsibilities are any greater in the assessor's office. Somebody can tell me if I'm wrong there. But I think the township supervisor has a difficult job, and she's doing extraordinarily well, and we ought to recognize that. And the way to pay for that, I would 100% agree, and I appreciate the other members of the council advocating for this, is to zero out the trustees' pay. We sit up here, and sometimes the meetings are 5 minutes, and we're the best paid professionals in town when it's a 5-minute meeting. We're getting paid better than those highly compensated Carl surgeons, right? So I just don't think that's right. I think we ought to zero that out. Frankly, I think we ought to dissolve the township into the city, and that's a discussion for another day. But a good first step would be to recognize that we as trustees are sitting here for the same meeting, and that extra $45 would be better spent on public assistance or on paying our staff at the township.
Okay, Aaron.
So I want to make sure that I'm clear, and I don't know if it's very often that me and Mike agree, but I want to make sure that there's a bit of a stipulation in my position. I'm not judging my proposal or advocacy for an increase based upon performance. I think elected officials who do their jobs and they do it well, then that's fine. I'm talking about the position itself. And I had the same position with the mayor's office or with the city clerk's office. It's based upon the position and what I think is a fair salary for that particular position. I just might add, I think it's just for some fireworks tonight. I think it's, you didn't have that position when the mayor talked about the savings that she had over the course of several years. You didn't think that deserved a rewarding. So it's both are elected positions. So I think you would have to have the same position. If you think one deserves a reward based upon merit, then the other one does as well based upon service or ability in the job. So I'm not here to reward individuals for the work that they do. It's the position that I'm saying I think deserves an increase for the post itself. And I'm not trying to take a shot at Michelle. I'm just saying that that's how I see that. And yeah, so I do think there should be an increase. I don't support I would support something in the range of the $1,500, maybe the $2,000 one-time bump to move up, and then do the increases at the 1% that Eric has talked about. Yeah, so those are my comments.
Bill, did you want to say something?
Yeah, keeping in mind that these salary proposals are for the next elected officials and not the current ones, whoever they may be, it wouldn't really make sense to do a lot of rewarding based on current performance, because it could be somebody different. But having said that, and since we got into it, saving money isn't the only way to value performance. And most of the job of the general assistance program is to distribute money fairly and appropriately and make sure that people that need it get it. So, as long as that's happening, then you can measure performance that way. I guess as far as the salaries go, we're pretty close. I don't want to quibble over $500, but I'm kind of the opinion that I'm fine with zero for the board. When I first was elected, I didn't know that the board would get paid. I got this extra check, and I was kind of confused what that was. And so I don't know if anybody actually decides to run for city council and takes into consideration they may earn an extra $500 during the year for serving on the town board. But recognizing that we do substantial amounts of work, especially with the social service funding grant applications like Dennis was talking about, and a lot of background reading and research and things like that. But we serve on other boards too. We serve on library boards, Regional Planning Commission, Traffic Commission. We don't get paid for those. So it's just part of the job. It goes with the city council. So I'm okay with the board getting zero. That's not what the motion is. So if there's enough, if somebody wants to amend it, that might pass. I'm fine with the township clerk freeze at $5,700. And for the others, I don't think it makes a big difference whether it's 1,000 or 900. So I'd support the motion, although I'd probably also support a small bump for the beginning of the supervisor's salary in the order of 1,000, an extra 1,000 or 1,500 or something.
Okay, Charlie?
Yeah, let's just start some amendments here to keep this going. I'm gonna move to amend my motion to zero out the trustee salaries.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion to amend the motion.
Right.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Okay, I'll go no. Nay.
Okay, there's one no, but that motion carries, so the motion now is to raise the two elected officials' salaries by $900 a year, freeze the clerk at $5,700 for 4 years, and eliminate the trustees of the $45 or whatever it is right now, $44.06. All right, Aaron.
Yes,
Ammons.
I did have a question for Michelle. How many hours a week do you think is put in by the supervisor and the assessor?
I work probably at least 35 to 45. I was up there after hours and on weekends, and I'm there Monday through Friday. So full time.
And the assessor? Well, should I just ask Dan?
You can ask Dan.
That would depend on a few things. If Fred needs anything done with Carl case, or at the beginning of the year is kind of busy for us for reassessment and changing new things. I had my car accident, so I've been in the hospital a lot this last year, so it just really depends as needed. I'm always available if I'm needing at work. I can still communicate by email and by phone calls. And I've talked to a few of you on my cell phone. And I know I've talked to Fred a lot on my cell phone, and he needed stuff and answers on cases, so.
Okay. We have a motion that's been amended, and it is to have $900 a year for the assessor and the supervisor.
Laurel?
Increases, sorry. And $5,700 for the clerk for 4 years, and no pay for the trustees. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Eric?
So I'll move one more amendment. I'll move a 1-year initial bump of $2,000 for the supervisor to partially close the gap between the supervisor and the assessor.
Is there a second? Second. Okay. There's an amendment to increase the supervisor's salary for the first year by an additional $2,000. Is that correct? An additional $2,000?
That's
On top of the 900?
On top of the 900, yes.
Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
I had a follow-up question.
Aaron has a question.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the different salaries, and I'm trying to be sensitive to the work of the assessor. But Dan, I really don't feel like I got an answer to my question.
And I'm not sure I'll be the assessor next term either, so.
What does that mean?
I mean, that they're learning on my side, so I'm not even sure I'll be the assessor next term, so.
I don't know if I understand if that. What does that have to do with my question about the number of hours that you worked on?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay, because we should keep in mind that we're trying to do the office rather than the individual.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I'm thoroughly confused now.
All right, Eric?
Yeah, no, I think Aaron has a point. What we're trying to understand is how demanding is the job? How many hours per week is required to do the job to the effectiveness that is appropriate?
You know, not only myself is there, but I also have 3 full-time staff members who are fully trained to do the job as well. It could be anywhere from 20 hours to 60 hours or 70 hours when Fred was needing me to look things up and work weekends and review documents and go through different valuations. And so, I mean, it can be anything. I was there 2 weeks ago getting things ready for the city budget, reviewing what Carl's assessment would be. So, I mean, it varies as time needs. I mean, there's no set hour. It's just as much time as needed, you have to get it done. So,
Eric?
Yeah, let me follow that up because our tax base depends on an accurate assessment of every parcel of property
Correct.
in town. So how much time does it take to review a property? Maybe you can fill us in if you can do it in just a minute or two. What is the procedure by which assessments are continually upgraded and made current?
the first thing I would do is a sales ratio study by neighborhood. So we look at the sales of the previous 3 years versus what that house sold for. And if it is 5% instead of 33 and third like the law requires, that means it's too low. And we look at the entire neighborhood and it may be at 26.8% rather than at 33 and third. And we know that neighborhood needs an adjustment either by reassessing the whole neighborhood by walking it, which we've done, making sure the measurements are correct, and then recalculating it, cost new less depreciation, or we can put a factor on it based on the statistics of the difference between the median level of assessment and 33 and a third, which would get you, you know, it could be, 2.5 or 4% increase.
So is it possible to say how time consuming is that per property, and how many properties do you have to do?
It really depends on the sales in that neighborhood. You have to go through each one of the sales in that neighborhood. If you have 30 sales, you want to make sure that those sales are proper to use in that scenario. There wasn't something that made it not arm's length, or it was a short sale, because you don't want those to affect, everyone else in that neighborhood. So, I mean, it could take an hour to do one neighborhood, or it could take 4 days if you're really looking at it and you go back and say that doesn't seem right, and you want to make sure. And then the other problem that you have is you can't increase the base higher than to take the median level. When you do all this mathematical things, there's calculations that's done at the end, and if you go over 33 and a third, you can get a negative multiplier come February, which I think we had one in 2009, right, or 2010, right when I first started. But like this year, I went through and I raised what I could to bring everyone fair and equitable without getting a negative multiplier at the end. So I mean, there's a lot of math and a lot of time that's involved in that. But to put an hour on it, it just for each one depends. We have 20 neighborhoods to look at, and do those calculations on.
But we sort of have to put an hour on it because we have to say how many staff plus the assessor are needed. So, and, you know, if we are, so it is kind of necessary for us to make the right, you know, for the right staffing decisions to be made. It is really necessary to quantify that process, it seems to me.
And, you know, one of the projects that we just finished up last year was large Southeast Urbana, which was from Fowler Road to Ray Street, Florida, to Windsor. And my staff went out and picked up everything that we found that was missing. We thought that would take a year and a half, and I think it took us 3, or took them 3. So, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, you know, you think it's going to take an hour, could take 10 hours, just depending on the complexity of it and what needs to be done.
Thanks.
Okay, we have a motion to give the supervisor a $2,000 increase, and then the supervisor and the assessor $900 a year for the 4 years. Keep the clerk at $5,700 a year for 4 years, and eliminate the trustees' pay. Are we ready to vote on that?
I have one more question.
Aaron Ammons.
Because we're voting to eliminate the gigantic $45 that we earn up here for whatever time we spend. And I don't know exactly, maybe Madam Clerk, could you share with us exactly what the role is for the clerk as it relates to the township?
What I usually do for the township is very minimal. There were things that I did for the township prior to Michelle coming on, such as the preparation of the agenda and the minutes, and Carol would send us an outline of what was going to be in the packet, and we would put the packets together. As it is right now, Michelle she takes all of that and she does it herself. So she sends us the information and we put it together in the packet. We don't do a whole lot. Only thing that we do is the minutes and whatever addition to the agenda that we need. I used to sign township checks. I don't do that anymore, only when necessary. Michelle has taken that and has brought all of that in-house over at the township office. So I do very little for the township anymore.
So I want to make another amendment. The amendment I would propose is that the $2,000 that we are putting forth for the township assessor come from the $5,700 that goes to the city clerk on a yearly basis, and leave that $3,700 for all of us. No, I'm just kidding. But to remove that pay as well. I think that would be principled and consistent, since we don't do a whole lot of work, and Madam Clerk has said they no longer do it. Then I don't see why that $5,700 should stay with the city clerk. So that is my motion as a friendly amendment. Some people may not see it very friendly, but that is my motion.
Is it a friendly amendment to the motion in the second?
No, I won't
Okay.
consider that a
So
friendly amendment.
is there a second to Mr. Ammons' motion?
Just to clarify, you're saying zeroing out the clerk's salary as well?
No, he's
No.
saying cutting it $2,000.
Oh no, wait a minute. Let me make sure. I'm saying zero it.
I thought you said cut
No,
it
I'm saying
2,000.
zero it. If
Oh.
it's not,
All right.
Madam Clerk
I
said they're not
misunderstood.
doing
Sorry about
anything
that.
for it. They doing about as much as what we do up here for our $45. That's, if we got zero, then they should get zero. Yeah.
Okay, so you want to cut it 5,700.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there a second?
Charlie, you not going to second that?
All right, then the motion
Wow.
fails for lack of a second.
Wow.
I'd take the 3,700.
Yeah, I'll try that
Take
one.
2,000. Yeah.
Okay, Bill Brown.
Okay. Then let's try what some of us thought the motion was going to be was to cut the township clerk salary by 2,000, so make it 3,700 instead of 5,700.
I'll
I'll second
it.
that.
Okay, who was first on that? I think Diane was first. Okay, there's a motion by Bill Brown to cut the clerk's salary to $3,700, cut it by $2,000. Seconded by Marlon. Any other discussion on that? Aaron?
Yes.
Okay, I stand corrected even though I'm sitting down. Okay.
So if I understand my colleagues correctly, there's a proposal that says that the next city clerk should get $3,700 a year, is it, or is it per pay period?
A year.
It's a year
It's not per meeting.
to organize the agenda. Is that what that's what I'm
No,
hearing?
to do the minutes and everything.
Oh, so doing the minutes and all that. Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Bill?
The clerk may be minimizing her minimal participation a little bit. I don't know if there's statutory duties for the clerk, but but the clerk also provides advice as far as when you have to have your annual town meeting and what has to be on those agendas, and she helps organize the procedural things that nobody else knows because the town clerk's been around a long time and has gone through a lot of training to handle that sort of thing. So I think 3,700 is probably fair.
Did you want to say something?
And it is a statutory thing. The township boundaries are contiguous with that of the city, and according to the Illinois compiled statutes, whomever it is that is elected as the city clerk is automatically put in the position of township clerk, as long as the boundaries are contiguous, and they are.
Okay. Eric?
I had something else in mind before we came here, and I probably should have commented on it in email, but I'll say it publicly. We received our items by email. They weren't posted on the town board website. So actually the public, it may not be legal for us to take any action because there was no public posting of tonight's items, I think, as far as I could find. The agenda was posted, but the items were not. So, for example, there was no posting of the proposed salary adjustments.
It was last month.
It was posted last month. Really? It's not on the Cunningham Township Board website. So I don't know where it was posted.
Well,
if it was posted.
it's listed as unfinished business. So was it,
Michelle needs to answer that because she's the one that handles all of that stuff. She doesn't give it to me anymore.
We don't have a website.
Yes, you do. There's a Cunningham Township Board website.
No, we don't.
I'm looking at it. I'm opening it right now.
Are you talking on the City of Urbana website?
Yes, it's under the City of Urbana, and then there's Cunningham Township Board website. And there is an agenda, but the items themselves in the city, we always have the items posted so that the public has advance knowledge of the content of the proposals that we're dealing with. And none of the stuff that we're dealing with today was posted, as far as I could find.
Bill?
We may want to refer to an attorney, but I think with the Open Meetings Act, all you're required to post is an agenda and a general description of each item on the agenda. And that probably is accomplished through the agenda. But I do agree that since it's customary for us to do that with council, I don't see why we don't do that with the township. And even though the township isn't required to even post an agenda on its website because they don't have a website, they have to post it on their door, and we post it on our website. But I don't see why it wouldn't be possible just to post all the packet material. So that would be a request, but I don't know if I don't think there's any legal problems with it.
But in any case, okay, I guess what I'm really arguing for is that I would really like to see those materials given to the clerk for posting. And so I'm going to oppose the reduction of the clerk's salary. I think the clerk should be doing more for the township than at present she's being asked to do.
Okay, we have a motion by Bill Brown, seconded by Charlie Smythe, to reduce the clerk's salary to $3,700 a year. All those in favor, you want to say
One
something,
question.
Aaron?
Yeah.
Go
So, Madam Clerk, you did speak to some statutory things and some changes that were made. There was something that established the work that you were doing or your office was doing prior to Michelle coming on. Was that something that is statutory, or is that something that was just an understanding? I'm trying to understand that process.
When Michelle took office, I explained to her the things it is that we did in our office for the township. At that time, we did the agendas, we did the minutes, of course. Any items that was on the agenda, Carol would send to us, and we would process all of that out. As it is right now, Michelle processes all of that. All we get is the agenda, we do the minutes, and the information that goes on this is what Michelle brings to the meeting on Monday nights. Because we don't even get the ordinances or the resolutions or any of the items prior to
I was
Monday
looking for
night.
that and I didn't see it in my packet. Yeah.
Yeah, so Michelle took all of that over, and to my knowledge, I don't know why, but that's something that she felt she needed to have a handle on, I presume. So she's got a handle.
All of the resolutions and ordinances are emailed because then Wendy emails me back with the ordinance numbers. So all of the attachments that are sent to the board are sent over to Phyllis and Wendy also. Because that's how I get the resolution and ordinance numbers.
Okay, one way or another, I do believe that, as is the case with the city council, it should also be with the board, that the items, the content of the items that the board will consider should be posted on the web so that the public may see that in advance of the meeting.
And I understand that, but, you know, it's just now coming up and it hasn't been like that for months. So, you know, who's really paying attention, I guess.
Okay, we do have a motion, and I'll repeat it. It's by Bill Brown, seconded by Charlie Smythe, to reduce the clerk's salary to $3,700 a year for the 4 years. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we're going to have a show of hands. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that's 3, 4. Okay, and those opposed? That is 3. So that motion carries. Now, we have the original motion as revised several times, which is to have a $2,000 increase for the supervisor and an additional $900, that's just for the first year, and an additional $900 a year for 4 years for the supervisor and the assessor. All those in favor? I guess we should have a roll call on
You
this
need a roll
one.
call on that.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Madigan.
But the 2,000 goes to the base, correct?
Right.
Right.
Goes to the current salary and stays there, and then there's $900 added the first year and the
Okay.
second,
You just said
third,
for the
fourth.
first year only. I wanted to
Well,
clarify that
yeah.
goes to the base.
Right, exactly. Would the clerk please call the roll? This is on the motion as amended. It includes the I should have said that, it includes the $3,700 for the clerk.
Mr. Ammons,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mr. Madigan,
Yes.
Ms. Marlin,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts, Mr.
Yes.
Smythe.
Yes.
That motion carries. Now, we have new business. We have the audit presentation.
Yes. Okay.
Hope Wheeler is here from Clifton Larson Allen.
Okay.
Is this on? Thank you for having me here tonight. I was the principal in charge of the audit for this fiscal year ended June 30, 16. I'm going to just do a brief synopsis of the audit process and the reports that we issued. We commenced the audit back in July, and then we wrapped up field work and started drafting reports in the month of August, and then issued the audit report in September. So that's what we're presenting here tonight. We issued 3 different reports, which I believe you should have. The first is the actual financial statement. Our opinion on the financial statements for fiscal year 16 is a clean or unmodified opinion, that these are fairly stated in all material respects. And we do state in the opinion that these are on the cash basis of accounting, modified cash basis. I won't go read through the numbers in the financial statement. There were no major new disclosures or format changes in the financial statement process. So it looks very similar to prior years. No new required disclosures this year. I will go through the couple of letters that we issued as a result of the audit process. The first one is addressed just to the Board of Trustees, and that we call the governance communication. It's a required communication under auditing standards, and that's just to relay to you as the board how the audit process went with the management group of Town of Cunningham. Just to highlight a couple of sections there, the first section is in regard to accounting policies. There were no new significant accounting policies adopted this fiscal year that affected or changed the financial statements from prior years. If there were significant accounting estimates, I'd want to point those out to the board. Being on the modified cash basis of accounting, there is not a lot of significant estimates as you would see on the accrual basis of accounting. On page 2 of that report, there's a section on uncorrected misstatements. And what that's referring to is if we found items that needed adjusted, but they were small in nature, we can accumulate those to see if they grow to a large enough number that they have to be posted to make the financial statements materially correct. We did not, any adjustment we found and proposed, those were posted. So there are no uncorrected misstatements that we found as part of the audit process. And then there's the corrected misstatements heading. All of the adjustments we found as part of the audit process are attached to the governance letter, so you can see the adjusting entries. And we'll talk about those a little bit more. And then lastly, just wanted to point out if we had disagreements with management as far as the auditing process or accounting or financial reporting items, we'd want to share those with you, but there were not disagreements in regards to any of the processes. And then the last letter I wanted to just go over with you is the letter addressed to the Board of Trustees and management. This letter just points out items that we wanted to share, recommendations and items to review with the Board of Trustees. The first item on the bottom of the first page is financial statement preparation. Several years back, it just became required as part of the auditing process if the auditor is hired to prepare the financial statements to include that in here. So we're noting there that we do prepare the financial statements, and management group did review the financial statements. The second section there is in regards to the adjusting entries that I mentioned were attached to the governance letter. There were a few adjusting entries this year as part of the process. I believe that it's not a recurring, this was our first year doing it, but I don't believe I saw adjusting entries attached in the past. But this year, as you know, with the conversion to QuickBooks mid-year, there were some challenges there, and we did find the funds to be out of balance when we did the audit at the end of the fiscal year. So we helped in tracking that down and found the reasons why it was out of balance, and that triggered those adjusting entries to get balance between the funds. In total, the funds balanced, but not town fund and the general assistance fund. And we helped, we worked with the staff there to to find a way to reconcile that, so that's should be trued up and should not be happening going forward. So they know how to balance those out now by fund. And then the last item here was just another matter we wanted to point out. When we were doing internal control walkthroughs and testing, we select some random employees and we see that, pay rate's approved pay rate, time is tracked and reviewed, vacation is properly tracked and reviewed. And we noted when we selected employee from the assessor's office, we weren't able to get an up-to-date vacation log that was reviewed, and there weren't written policies to show what the vacation they should be earning was. So we just recommend as a good business practice to consider having an established policy there and tracking that on a timely basis.
Charlie.
Yep. Is there a sick leave policy and tracking of sick leave?
I don't remember that off the top of my head for this entity. I'd have to look. I mean, typically the sick leave isn't paid out, so it's not something that we're looking at as closely as we do vacation pay that often gets paid out when someone terminates.
Okay. Thank you.
Diane?
Was there a tracking of hours worked?
Eventually there was a tracking of hours, but it was behind. We got it after asking for it a few times. Then it was
And there was no
provided to
written
us.
personnel policy or vacation policy?
Not for the assessor's office. We were able to obtain for the supervisor's office written personnel policies.
So was that a recommendation you made to the assessor to have a policy developed for that?
That's what we're saying in this letter.
Is that underway?
I don't know. That's something we wouldn't follow up on until the next audit.
Is Dan still here?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can answer that after you're finished. I don't want to interrupt your presentation.
Eric.
This is probably a question for Fred. What is the role of the board with respect to reviewing and or approving personnel policies? Is that completely the discretion of the elected official, or does the board have a role in that? I guess I'm asking you because I'm guessing that that's possibly statutory.
In the case of Cunningham Township, that is up to the two elected officers. In some townships where they have other elected officers, there are things that the township board controls. But for these two particular offices, it's done by the elected officers.
That's all I had for my presentation, so if anyone had any other questions, I could answer them.
Any other questions? Eric.
I just want to be sure I'm translating your language right, since I don't speak auditese. There isn't really, although there was this issue with respect to shifting from one system to another, and that was tracked down and that was corrected, but there's no really worrisome thing with respect to the financial flow as far as you've been able to tell that we should worry about. That's correct, I think, or that's what I'm reading. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. We reviewed all the major transaction processing categories and didn't find any major internal control concerns. If so, we'd report those to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Charlie.
Fred, Michelle, do we need to have a motion to put this on file or accept it? I think a move to accept it and put it on file, including publishing it to the web, is probably appropriate. So I'd make that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay,
I
motion
absolutely should be posted.
By Charlie, seconded by Eric, to post this and put it on our website. Accept it and post it and put it on our website. Any other comments? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Next, we have ordinance number T
What-
20.
Were
What?
we going to have a little bit of a discussion about that personnel policy from the assessor?
We're,
The vacation time?
I think the attorney just said that that's up to the elected official. But
But
do you
the
wanna have a
follow-up question
discussion?
was, is it underway?
Beg your pardon?
The follow-up question was, is it underway?
Yeah, I mean, we don't
Dan,
have.
do you want to comment on that? You were going to comment on the next thing anyway, so.
Yes, I am working on one, and actually, the audit actually brought to their attention that after their 5 years, I did give, Kim and Jamie have been there for 7. After 5 years, they got extra days, and they forgot to put them on their calendar. They have a calendar for each day. Each time they're on vacation or sick days, they keep track of it, and it's given back to me. I did email it to the auditor when I was asked for it, but so there is a small, I might do a one-page personnel policy. It makes it a lot easier to get things done rather than the 19-page one that Michelle has.
Okay. Anything else? All right, we are now to ordinance number T 2016-11-003, an ordinance regulating the reimbursement of all travel, meal, and lodging expenses of officers, employees, and employees of officers in Cunningham Township, Champaign County, Illinois. And you wanted to comment on that, Dan?
Yeah, at the beginning of actually, I want to say one other thing. Illinois statute for the assessor does not require a personnel policy for offices less than 5 employees. And so when I first started, I had a lot of other things to do than that, and I didn't really pay attention because we did not have an issue with employees at that time or currently. I had given you my 3 employees, Jamie, Katie, and Kim had gone to class back in beginning of November, and I'd given you what their total expenses were for their travel time. My chief deputy is also an assessor in another township, so she has that township pay for all of her training expenses, and then I pay for her time to go to the class through her salary. And so you can see that they're not very extravagant expenses for either one of the other 2 employees. You know, a room of $79 or $70, depending on who they booked it through, depending on the price. Unfortunately, they didn't do it at the same time, but they did the same way, but they get different prices. But their meal expenses of $9 and $13 are well under the federal guidelines. And I think the other ones were not the same one. The other one was, I think the same, pretty close to the same price. Thank you to that page.
Does everybody have a copy of the proposed travel policy? Because
Are we looking at this?
Yeah, that's what I gave.
This is what the assessor is talking about, how his employees actually spent the money, but the item on the agenda is a travel
Right, and that was their travel
ordinance,
time.
and we don't have that in front of us, I don't believe.
There should be it was in your packet, because I have one in mine.
It was emailed.
It was emailed.
It was emailed separately, because I guess I couldn't find
It was emailed, at least I got it as one of a number of attachments in an
Okay.
email from Michelle.
All right,
And for some reason, I didn't get the attachment. I got other attachments.
I got other attachments too, but I didn't get that one. But anyway, go ahead.
But my problem is with Section 3, Number 4B, if more than one person from the township is attending an event, hotel rooms must be occupied by a minimum of 2 officers or officers and employees of the same gender. Each officer or employees will not be given their own hotel room reimbursement will not be given. I think, my staff was up here before explaining they tried that and it did not work for a number of reasons. And, I think if we were having an issue with, staying in $400 hotel rooms separately, I can see that, but that's not what we've done the last 7 years. We try to stay as cheaply as possible and go to conferences that don't require rooms that are that expensive. So, we've tried to make sure educational expenses are as low as we can have them.
Does the, can the supervisor set the travel policy for the assessor?
I would like to provide you with some information about this before you discuss it further. It may speed things along for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
The legislature very recently passed a law requiring all non-home rule units of government to adopt an ordinance creating such a policy. Not necessarily the most efficient way of doing it, but nonetheless, we don't get to decide what the legislature does. We're required to pass the ordinance. The ordinance that is before you essentially tracks the statute. The statute is about 2 or 3 pages long. The ordinance is about 2 or 3 pages long. About the only thing actually for the township to do is to decide what the maximum reimbursement rates would be. It was my suggestion to use what the federal government provides. IRS has a mileage rate for driving that it changes every year. General Services Administration provides numbers for depending upon where you are for hotel, motel, meals, and so forth, which I think is how it was being done anyway. This is required to be done for the entire unit of government, so this isn't what the supervisor is trying to impose. This is what the supervisor has prepared for the township board, and it's for the township board to decide whether they like this, whether they have any changes. Two employees on the assessor side spoke earlier opposing the section 3(4)B on who occupies a hotel room. I don't intend by my comments to suggest what you should do with that, just that you can do whatever you like with that. If you agree with what Kim and Katie said, the simplest thing to do is simply to remove subparagraph 4B. I will point out that the statute provides, and so the ordinance provides, that exceeding these numbers can be approved by the township board on any particular occasion. But as long as these numbers aren't exceeded, the township board doesn't need to become involved. There's simply the form that will be provided, filled out to provide the necessary information, and the reimbursement will be made.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Fred?
Yeah.
Eric?
Yeah, I think I would favor removing 4B. Naomi and I have been working through this for 53 years. And we keep making new adjustments as we go through different stages of our lives. But we've had a lot of practice, I think, just, putting people together in this fashion who don't know each other that well could very well be problematic and might actually even impair their performance.
Okay, so you're making a motion?
So I would move to strike 3(4)B.
Okay, I'll second it.
Okay, there's a motion to strike that section. Aaron, you want to say something?
Yes. That I would support that, but I also would want to make sure that, as one who has been a vegetarian for a long time, I've gone to many different conferences, and I know some of you are looking like vegetarian, right?
It's okay.
No,
I'm
that don't
very
look
tolerant.
like I'm a vegetarian. I eat a lot of cake, okay? But there's plenty of times when I've gone to conferences over the past couple of years where the meals did not take into consideration my dietary restrictions, right? Some people have gluten issues, they have nut allergies. There's so many different things that you can, and all of these conferences and stuff don't always take those things into consideration. So I'm a little concerned that certainly if the person, I do think the individual should document some of those things or something like that. But I do think that that's something that we should think about when we're trying to put a policy together, that not everyone just eats what's being presented at a conference or something like that. So I would support some sort of modification or the removal of A as well.
Okay, Charlie?
Yeah, I don't, yeah, that's not, yeah, something needs to be done here. I think we should work on some of the exceptions here. I think the policy in general is the right, we have to do it, and it's the right way to be going. But I think there's some little adjustments we should be making. 4B, we need to come up with an exception for 3 and 4A, the meal things that have been pointed out here for particular situations. The other issue can be that lodging can sometimes be difficult to find. In some communities where there are a lot of conferences and stuff, you can't get the GSA rate anywhere. And you can end up 10 or 20 miles away, and your travel expenses are higher than if you were staying at the hotel. So we need to have some kind of exception for 2 as well here. So I would ask that we just keep this we'll just keep this for next month, and figure out how to put in those exceptions, as well as dropping 4B. We don't actually, and as a point of order, I would point out that we have a motion to amend something, but we haven't even put the main motion on
right.
the floor. So Eric's motion really is out of order. Sorry, Eric.
It was actually just a statement of opinion.
Yeah. So I would
Okay.
I would move to, we've each provided some ideas here. We should work on this. So I'd move to send this to next month's meeting, where we can, in the meantime, work on what the little exceptions are to each of these, and come back with a new version.
I could say, is that a friendly amendment to Eric and Dennis?
There was no motion on the floor.
Well, they
so
did actually make a motion, but maybe it was out of order. But anyway, one way to do it.
Yeah, I would just move to send this to committee.
Okay, is there a
or
second?
to next meeting.
Second by Eric?
Yeah,
Did you
I
say?
think Aaron was more vocal.
Okay. All right, there's a motion by Charlie, seconded by Aaron, to send this to the next committee, to the next Cunningham Town Board meeting. Bill Brown.
Just a point of information, does the city have a travel reimbursement policy?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Is this pretty similar?
I'd have to compare it, but we make sure that people live within the budget.
Okay. Maybe we could provide that to Michelle too, and you could kind of put them together and see what works with our comments.
Okay.
Right. I mean, I just got this information, as if you guys saw what was passed around, mid-October. So to get an ordinance together for the November meeting, I just took what TOI had sent as, kind of a dummy ordinance to go off of. So this isn't something that I just thought up of to do, because I really don't like creating paperwork. So it is something that we are required to do. So that is why it was done.
Question.
Yes, Diane.
Since the township is coterminous with the city, and the town board is also the city council, is there any reason why the travel policies shouldn't be identical?
I don't know. Maybe the state law that was just passed has specifics in it that we don't have in our ordinance. We'd have to look at the two.
Well, I would
And-
make every effort to make it identical, just to save work and to make it consistent for everybody.
Well, it'd be two different groups that are administering it.
No, it's the same group that's overseeing it.
Right, but to administer it would be two separate groups. Okay, we have a motion to take this ordinance and put it on our agenda for next month. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Okay, now we're up to the ordinance determining the amounts of money necessary to be raised by the tax levy for the tax year 2016, collectible in 2017. Michelle?
It is the same levy amount that we received last year. So there was no increase. The figures are the same. So So that's what I presented.
Charlie?
Yeah, Michelle, could you remind me, did we lower last year's levy by 100,000 or 200,000? There was some lowering,
We
right?
lowered it and put more money in town fund than GA to cover social service. So I still didn't change anything because we have not received medical back for our clients if the Affordable Care Act, disappears. That was the anticipation. So I left it alone, with the uncertainty of what's going to happen with that. I think if the Affordable Care Act did disappear, I could see us maybe paying a couple months worth of medical bills in this fiscal year, but not the way that the billing is so slow. Before it all caught up, that it became the township's responsibility. So I didn't I didn't change it. I left what you guys had last year in town fund and GA levies.
Okay.
Bill?
I move approval.
Second.
There's a motion by Brown, seconded by Jacobson, to approve it as presented. Mike Madigan?
So just for clarification, what is the difference between the proposed levy and the current levy?
I think she said it's the same.
It's the same.
It's the same, all right.
But we haven't looked at the fund balance or anything.
So, okay. So it's the same. So what would the difference in the tax rate be under that? Do we know that?
We don't know exactly what the tax
But
rate's going to be until we
let's-
get the assessments.
Can you guesstimate that at all? Do you have any way to estimate that?
No, I mean, I don't know off the top of my head. I can get with Sasha tomorrow and give her my figures, and she can give me a roundabout, and I can email it to you.
Okay.
Charlie, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to look at our expenses to date type budget, review those numbers, and do some projections that would look at both with and without the future impact of additional health care costs. And Michelle, when would those actually hit? A year from now? If
The medical?
yeah.
If the Affordable Care Act just hypothetically disappears in February and our clients start going to the doctor February 1st, we're going to be liable for those medical bills. Now, it could take them 60 days or 45 to 60 days for them to get through the billing process and get sent to the township, and then we pay them right away. So,
Aaron?
So
And then Eric?
this just raises a question for me about sort of going back to the audit. How do we review the audit? Do we get a review of the audit or something like that internally?
No.
Or we just go with it normally?
We go read it now.
We go read it. Okay. And then we file it, right? After we have looked at it again?
Eric, okay.
I'm trying to look to these more experienced council members. I'm not getting a whole lot of answers.
Yeah, I mean, we've had the audit in front of us. We've heard from the auditor.
Mhm.
We've agreed to accept it and to post it. But
And it just seems like that would affect what we're talking about now about the levy. Am I?
well, the audit's not the budget.
But it is the audit of the.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're on the right track.
I think I'm on the right track, but I don't have to put it all together here. All right.
Okay, we have a motion by Bill Brown, seconded by Eric Jacobson, to accept the levy as
Yeah.
presented. Eric?
So just to think about future scenarios, if it should happen that our clients' payments through the Affordable Care Act are discontinued, then we'll be in a position probably of dipping into our reserves for the latter part of the next fiscal year. Do you think?
yes.
Okay.
That fund balance is pretty big.
Yeah. But yeah, Charlie just made a comment sotto voce that the fund balance is pretty big, and I guess that's my understanding too, that we're not going to be in a cash flow emergency if that
Correct.
happens, not before the next fiscal year ends.
Correct, which is why I did not raise the levy.
Okay, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
That motion carries. Next is the consideration of closed and open sessions pending litigation. Do we need a closed session, Mr. Grosser?
We do not need a closed session. I do have an update for you. Last month, I informed you that the Department of Revenue had a new due date for its brief. Each time it requested an extension, that gave it a new date, usually about 35 days later. It did not request another extension. It filed its brief on that due date, which was the 19th of October. Our brief has been in the works. Our brief is due by the 23rd of November, and I expect that it will be filed not later than that date.
Okay, any other questions? Eric?
So what does that mean in terms of an actual hearing date?
After our after our brief, the Department of Revenue and Carl get to file a reply brief responding to our brief, and I expect they will. They have 14 days after November 23rd to do that. Then it would be on the Supreme Court's ready calendar to be assigned for oral argument. While in the appellate court they have oral argument every month, several times a month, the Supreme Court doesn't do it that way. They have oral arguments, 4 or 5 times a year. And it clearly is not going to make November.
Mm-hmm.
The next time they have oral argument, I believe, is in January. From my perspective, it will be ready.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, I don't know how many cases ahead of us will be ready. And whether cases are ready doesn't just depend upon whether they're initially filed, because as you've seen, sometimes parties request extensions of time and sometimes they don't.
Mm-hmm.
In my experience, in most of the cases I've been involved in, there are no extensions of time requested. Some cases there are several requests for extension of time. So there's no way I could estimate how many cases, if any, would be ahead of us. They would just list them on the calendar, I understand, in the order in which they are ready.
Okay.
And we'll know when it's going to be as soon as they send out the notice of the dates.
So maybe likely sometime in the first part of next year.
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Is the township letter somewhere circulating around? TOI letter that we passed around?
No, the TOI letter.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. So we should push for much more advance.